core, absorbed in the stone, was doing its job perfectly. Renato could feel a little eldritch jolt every time he downed a raven, but then it flowed into the glowing stone the way water flows down a riverbed. It all felt perfectly natural, as if all his life, this was what he had been meant to do.
Irgendwas schrecklich Dummes wird passieren.
Was a key node in the Empire's communications. From here, he could cut the ravens off from all communications with the palace.
Oh, alles getötet.
Renato tore through the last remaining guards at the outpost like hot coffee through snow. There was a far
Das habe ich so noch nie gehört.
He called the council speaker. He knew she would be thrilled. And she was. She wanted him to come back to base. They had plans to discuss and a medal to give him. A large, golden medal. Great, said Renato. Let's talk about who else I can kill. Then the far speaker croaked again.
Hello, Renato,
It said.
If you get sick of slaughtering second-rate birds in the Nexus, I am waiting for you in the mountains.
Zenobia. She missed him. She loved him. Once she saw how awesome he'd become, maybe she'd join him.
Unwahrscheinlich.
They'd kiss and... Well, if she did refuse for some reason, he was no match for him now.
Nope. Das ist offensichtlich ein Hinterhalt. Auf zum Stützpunkt. Renato war voller Kraft. Er war bereit, sich dem Kampf gegen das Imperium zu stellen. Doch dann schickte Zenobia ihm eine offene Einladung. Direkt in eine Falle. Natürlich war das lediglich ein verzweifelter Versuch, ihn von seiner Mission abzubringen. Er hatte die Macht, die Rebellion zu retten. Und genau das würde er auch tun. Auf zum Rebellenstützpunkt.
Zenobia was taunting him. No doubt she hoped to lure him into a trap. Well, he was nobody's sucker. Especially not hers. He carried victory in his gauntlet. He would go where the council pointed him.
Kann ich nicht einfach schnippen mit und die ganze Rahmenarmee wegmachen? Ist das nicht so eine Art Handschuh?
As he set foot on the island, Renato felt energized, like when he was hunting or dancing. Then he smelt it, the stench of ravens. It was a good thing he was here too, before they tripped over the secret base. He was really saving the council toad's bacon, so to speak.
Ah, das ging ja jetzt komplett in die Hose. Ah, wieso mache ich die Scheiße eigentlich noch kaputt? Ich krieg keine Energie zurück.
The ravens had reduced Ubar to rubble. Renato chuckled at the irony that it was now the secret rebel base. See? Renato was a hero of the revolution. He deserved a medal. Soon, he deserved every medal they had, and hopefully one big medal ceremony in front of everybody with trumpets so everyone could know what he'd accomplished. long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. He was on fire. So far, so good.
Knock, knock.
Inside the rebel base, Renato was invited to the council speaker's private chambers. So, this is the Iblis Stone? He said. I can feel its power. Renato told her how he had fed the core to the stone and made something even more useful than either. Crazy like a fox, she croaked. And Renato chuckled as if he'd never heard the joke before. We've given you the best quarters and a bottle of Tantalonian firewater. All for you. So they'd remembered. He woke in the morning with the sweetest of hangovers. But the Iblis Stone was gone from his gauntlet. The corridors were empty, except for a few rebels who looked just as hungover as him. Come on, you'll miss the battle, they yelled. Renato added sail as the Farfarer scudded across the sky. Who could have taken the Iblis Stone? Was it some Imperial spy?
Latino.
And kill him and take the stone back.
Aber der weiß doch gar nicht, wo die Basis ist, wenn ich es ihm nicht sage. Ist das bescheuert?
Renato had a bad taste in his mouth. He was killing ravens, but it wasn't fun. It felt like a chore. Oh, Renato hated chores. As a fox kid, he'd gone hungry rather than clean his room. He still didn't clean his room, he just moved house every few years. Who had the Iblis Stone anyway? Up ahead, he could hear screaming and croaking and cawing. But who was winning? There it was again. The back door to the portal that went to the center of the fleet.
Gib it doch nicht.
As he ran forward, Renato noticed that some ravens were starting to ignore him. Just running away. Who were they running from? Some hero of the revolution? If some other so-called hero of the revolution had the stone and tried to take his victory and his medals, Renato was gonna be seriously pissed off. He was the hero, not some other bozo.
Ganz schön machthungrig geworden, der Kollege. Gebt mir meinen Ruhm, ihr Wichser! So, wer hat das Ding?
Finally, Renato came to the Emperor's ship. Zenobia lay dead in front of it. The ship was a wreck. Ravens lay dead, sprawled everywhere. Bloody feathers spattered across the deck and the dock. The council speaker came out. She was waving a sword around like a flag. "Look at me, Renato!" she croaked. The Iblis stone on the sword was black as coal. "Now I will be Empress, and all shall tremble before me," she croaked. So the stone had her. It was in her brain, whining for blood. "I'm afraid I can't allow that," said Renato, and moved to fight her. Toads are not usually good with swords. Something about the footwork. And the council speaker was not even a warrior. She was always tripping over things, which is quite an impressive achievement when you're a toad. Yet somehow, she was pressing Renato backwards as he desperately tried to keep her sword away from his throat. "Look, why don't you keep the stone?" he asked. "You deserve it." "Blood and souls for Iblis," she croaked. "Blood and souls." She got under his guard with her sword. It was just the tip. But sometimes just the tip is enough. He could feel his soul being sucked into the stone. As he died, he felt embarrassed more than anything else. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up, like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. But he'd learned another true thing. The Iblis stone was evil. It would try to corrupt anyone who used it.
Geschichte 17. Für eine Handvoll Dukaten. Ein Held, der seinen Orden verdient, der sich seinen Heldentitel nicht von jedem stehlen lassen wird. Neue Wahrheit enthüllt. Der Iblisstein korrumpiert jeden, der ihn besitzt. Plus 2 Level. Das ist nice.
The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell.
Ich werde aber dasselbe machen wie davor, nur diesmal nicht mit Zenobia treffen.
It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe
das Bild hat
he
sich
could find a
geändert.
way to use it. To take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing.
Da ist ein
Of
Schlüssel.
course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion.
Wenn wir also die
And he had a gut
Wahrheit haben
feeling
wollen,
that he
müssen wir
needed to
dahin.
use that to his advantage.
Aber
The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches
obwohl, mal warten,
and
was
ostrich
Neues da
hunters.
steht.
The Iblis stone.
Ja, da steht was.
It would whisper promises in his ear, offer him power for blood. But this time, Renato was sure he could master it. And so, Renato went ostrich hunting.
Straußenjagd.
Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals?
Wieder die Aufzugschlacht.
Ravens were already here,
Wonderful.
cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. and he hadn't come too late.
Wir haben 2 Level bekommen, sogar. Was will ich denn noch lernen? Einfach mal die maximale Energie erhöhen hier. Wo Problem.
Whoa, personal space?
2000 Erfahrungspunkte. Nice. Und diesmal gehen wir nicht durchs Eis. Aber ich gehe eventuell durch diese Tür. Oder aber ich laufe hier links entlang. Nein, ich kann hier nicht links entlang. Sehr schön. Danke Spiel, dass du mir die Entscheidung abnimmst.
There had to be some way to use the Iblis stone. It was old, wasn't it? People are so much cleverer now. And Renato was pretty sure he was cleverer than most people.
Ah, du Penner. Flieg. Aktivier das Scheißding.
The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders.
Wieso hänge ich hier fest? Hallo. Danke. Ich habe Angst, mich schnell zu bewegen. Langsam in dem Spiel.
This wasn't actually such a hard puzzle, come to think of it.
Nee, echt kein schweres Puzzle.
It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up.
I can't.
Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty.
Habt ihr einen neuen Dialog? Weil ich weiß, dass er jeden korruptiert.
That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and he had a sneaking suspicion the gem would try to control him. Why not capture the core of Skyripper instead? It was the eye
Da
of a
kommt noch ein
lost
drittes
god
und
torn out by the transcendent Emperor to power
was
his
Neues.
greatest weapon. Not the core, said the stone anxiously. But even though Renato knew how evil the gem was, he had a clever plan for dealing with it.
Hatte er das?
The
Na, erstmal ist mir das
bothered
egal.
him. He hated being told what to do. Wasn't that why he joined the rebellion? Wasn't that why he'd refused to be a soldier? He'd agreed to come on board only if he could freelance. The stone felt a bit clingy, and he had a feeling it did not have his best interests at heart. The sage Calaveras had told him where to find the Skyripper, a weapon capable of challenging the gods. Even without its armature, the core would still possess great power. He would go there.
Ja, gehen wir dorthin. Und dann treffen wir uns mit
The
Zenobia.
moment he landed the Farfarer, Renato had a rare feeling of regret. It's not too late, he thought. He could turn around and sail for Zenobia's island. He frowned. Wait a minute. He didn't want to kill Zenobia, did he? Sure, technically she was the enemy, but they'd been at Sword Fu school together. They'd never been lovers, but somehow they'd been closer. She'd told him every secret about herself. Except the biggest one. That she was the Emperor's daughter. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. The stone hadn't lied about what it could do for him. With each raven he cut down, he felt a jolt of power flowing into his arm. "You're weak," whispered the stone. "The core will kill you." "Are you afraid of it?" "No, don't be ridiculous," it chuckled. But it's unstable. If a poison moves, someone just carry it, and if you try to use it, it will explode catastrophically. Renato did not trust rocks that talked in his head. He went onward.
Ah, wenn ich jemanden töte, kriege ich Energie zurück.
As he approached the core, the stone became hysterical. "No, it's too much power. We will rip a hole in space and time." He had a sudden vision of plunging his gauntlet into the core and dying in anguish. That wasn't his vision, was it? The stone had sent him its darkest fears, hadn't it? He had a sudden impulse to do exactly that. He raised his right fist and plunged it into the core. There was a rush of light. He thought he could hear the stone screaming. And then he passed out. When Renato came to, the core was gone. He
Yeah,
had defeated the demonic gem with the power of his mind. He felt invincible. It was time to attack the Imperial outpost on the Nexus. Take the battle to the enemy. But among the huge crystals, there was also an observatory.
Immer
A
noch den
wise
Kampf.
man would probably ask the scientists exactly what he had first. How wise was he?
Immer noch nicht besonders.
As the Farfarer sailed towards the Nexus,
Einmal höre ich mir
Renato
das immer
wondered
an.
if the core had been created to silence the stone, or even to feed its hunger. Well, honestly, he didn't care. He felt terrific. And he appreciated the quiet inside his head.
I don't hear voices in my head.
The Nexus was infested with ravens, but that didn't bother Renato. With each death, the converted Iblis stone in his gauntlets glowed brighter, and he felt stronger.
Wow. He was getting a bit bloodthirsty, wasn't he? Well, he wasn't one. He was a warrior. They're supposed to be bloodthirsty.
Und an derselben Stelle fängt das Spiel wieder an zu sagen, hey, du bist zu blutdurstig, töte mal nicht so schnell.
The core, absorbed in the stone, was doing its job perfectly. Renato could feel a little eldritch jolt every time he downed a raven, but then it flowed into the glowing stone the way water flows down a riverbed. It all felt perfectly natural, as if all his life, this was what he had been meant to do.
Mwahaha.
Renato tore through the last remaining guards at the outpost like hot coffee through snow.
So sieht's
There was a
aus.
fire speaker toad here. He called the council speaker. He knew she would be thrilled. And she was. She wanted him to come back to base. They had plans to discuss and a medal to give him. A large, golden medal. Great, said Renato. Let's talk about who else I can kill. Then the fire speaker croaked again.
Hello, Renato.
It said,
If you get sick of slaughtering second-rate birds in the Nexus, I'm waiting for you in the mountains.
Ja,
Zenobia.
komm mal her, Zenobia.
She missed him. She loved him. Once she saw how awesome he'd become, maybe she'd join him. They'd kiss and well, if she did refuse for some reason, he was no match for him now.
Wen interessiert's? Ich kann sie auf jeden Fall erledigen. Renato war voller Kraft. Er war bereit, sich dem Kampf gegen das Imperium zu stellen. Doch dann schickte Zenobia ihm eine offene Einladung, direkt in eine Falle. Er wusste, dass es eine Falle war, und sie wusste, dass er es wusste. Aber was auch immer sie plante, es würde nicht ausreichen, um ihn aufzuhalten. Er würde in die Berge ziehen und ihr eine Lektion erteilen.
Zenobia was taunting him. No doubt she hoped to lure him into a trap, but it didn't matter, did it? He could fight his way out of any trap. He was invincible. This was gonna be fun.
Ja, natürlich. Mega
So
spaßig.
where was this ambush? Renato couldn't wait.
Es
At
wird keinen
Swordfield
geben.
School, she'd always studied a little harder, practiced a little longer, complained really a lot less. And then she'd become a sorceress. He'd always known he'd have to take her by surprise or not at all. But this would be a surprise indeed.
Where he could find a snack. He was feeling a bit peckish.
Oh Gott, komm schon. Der Witz funktioniert echt nur im Englischen. Ah, komm, nehmen wir die untere diesmal.
The mountain paths were infested with ravens. That was swell. Every time he cut one down, the stone glowed a little brighter.
In fact, everything glowed a little brighter. How white the snow was, and how very blue the raven blood was.
Seriously? Where was she? He wanted to try his new strength against hers.
You think at this rate, the Imperial army would run out of ravens?
Na komm, put, Kätzchen.
Renato felt antsy. He'd found a source of great power. But instead of joining with the rebels, he was on a fool's errand the Emperor's daughter had sent him on. The rebels were preparing a last-ditch attack against the Imperial fleet, counting on Renato to show up in time. Would he be too late?
Oh, Zenobia, was hast du für mich?
At the end of the path was Zenobia. I thought you were going to ambush me, he said, a little put out. I owe you better than that.
I know how you feel about me, love. You want to join up with me, don't you? You got to admit, we'd make a great team. Of all the arrogant, ham-handed, half-assed, half-witted... Oh, come on. What else you here for?
That, she said, as a dropship poured a bucket of green liquid on his head. Drowsy gas. You can't stop me with drowsy gas, Zenobia. My power's too strong. Zenobia? Where was she?
When he awoke, he was staring up at the sky. Zenobia looked down at him, brooding.
I probably ought to kill you, but that'd be a bit tawdry, wouldn't it? She was tossing the glowing stone from paw to paw. This is pretty.
Zenobia!
He shouted, and then he fell back into sleep. On the Farfarer, Renato drank his favorite headache remedy. But it did no good. Zenobia had beaten him again. Oh, he really should have listened to the Iblastone in the first place instead of messing around with the core. He had a bad feeling about the upcoming fight. But what kind of hero misses the final battle?
Renato was bruised and
Zenobia.
tired. He wasn't looking forward to killing ravens. It didn't even seem scary. It felt like a chore, like sweeping the practice room at Sword Food School, which he'd done his best to leave for Zenobia whenever he could. What would she do with the glowing Iblastone? That should terrify him, shouldn't it? But he just felt dull and stupid as he carved his way towards probable doom.